Hello, freelance friends. Welcome to my first pod on Patreon. I'm making this one free because it is my first post, but going forward, this will be part of a paid tier. So today, what I wanted to talk about were three things that were sort of, simmering in the back of my mind. One in which was this concept of finding the right rooms or rehoming your ideas. And this first came to me a few months ago when I first moved, and I just sort of was thinking about the concept of home and also thinking about where my creative work should live. Where will it be best received? I am a writer at the base. However, I need to make money, and I also love business. And so I was publishing a lot of poetry on Instagram, and while my close friends or people who like poetry that I know were quite supportive of it, I just found I wasn't getting the reaction or traction or visibility that I wanted. And as my work was growing and I was creating more and more poetry, I had this moment of realization where I just realized that this poetry is actually of great value, and that just putting it on Instagram for free and as a piece of content was actually lowering its perceived value, and that I wasn't really interested in the concept of volume, in the sense that I would need to create a shit ton of volume of poems to gain traction, and I would need to create some sort of content strategy. Like it just didn't feel right. I just realized, not only could I make money by having my poetry in a book, but I just felt it wasn't right. It's not what people were looking for. And I just started thinking about where would I prefer to put my poetry, or where would it bring me more joy, because that's really what the point is at the end of the day. Like, anything can work. There are Instagram poets and there's everything, right? But for me, I was like, this just isn't bringing the sense of satisfaction. And so I started thinking about, rehoming my poetry. I started being more consistent on Substack, not just with poetry, but writing in general. And I was just rethinking in general where I put my work, and realizing that a lot of artists struggle with this, because the norm is for us to put all of our stuff on Instagram to show. But I had this kind of realization. I was like, even from a marketing perspective, just like giving your work for free essentially lowers its value, or just advertising a product alone diminishes the value. If you think about how huge companies work, example like Nike, they don't just have a billboard with a shoe in the middle, you know what I mean? Or shorts. They have a billboard that sells you the vibe, the mission, the values, the personality. Marketing is supposed to sell the essence of what you are, so that people want to buy the most potent, powerful form of what you make and offer. And that sort of just blew my mind, because it's kind of backwards to how people usually explain it. There's a lot of creators online that are like, give a free PDF, give it this, give free that, and just it's a numbers game, and do all these things, and then they'll sign up, and then they'll do this. And I'm just not interested in that format of business. It feels exhausting, and it feels unsustainable for me. No shade to others that's their form. And so this is something I've been thinking about for like quite a few months. And I now, more recently, was thinking about it even deeper because one, I need to make a lot of money. I need to make 2K in 2 weeks. And so I've been rethinking, what do I have that's of value and how can I sell it? And I was selling art at the powwow here in 𝐿𝐵𝐻 a couple weekends ago. And I sold some postcards, some prints of mine, pre-orders for my book, etc. I did okay. It was really not great. I probably made just under $200 for the whole weekend, which is not great when you think about all the hours that, I was there. And then also the time and effort it took to take my photos, print them, etc. But, most of the stuff I purchased a while back, so it still felt, better than nothing. Also, I shared the tent costs with my family and whatever. It was a fun experience, but it was interesting because this year I felt like maybe this isn't a recession indicator, but people were browsing and weren't asking as many questions and weren't really like in conversation with us as much as previous years. And I'm assuming it's because people had a low budget and didn't want to feel bad about like talking and not buying or something. But yeah, I made about half of what I made last year. And then after that, whatever, I was home and I had my box of stuff and I was like, how could I sell this? Like, maybe this stuff would actually be better sold if I just set up a fucking table outside my house, or if I set up at the park, or, I was like thinking about all these things. Because in a scenario of sitting outside my house or at a park, it's like, if people stumble on you, it feels like more of a delightful experience, or like, oh, what is this? Versus, oh, here's another table. Do I even care about this? And then I realized, I had taken a lot of nice pictures a couple years ago and made this tiny website with images of my work. And I was like, I could easily just put these on Facebook Marketplace and see if they sell. Because I was like, I had a lot of photos that were in vintage frames because, my photography is 35 millimeter. So I find it looks really good in like vintage frames that look like there's a story or there's a vibe. And surprisingly, in 2 days, I sold 4 framed prints. And I didn't sell them for expensive. I probably like $20, $15, $20 here or there. So I made maybe maximum like $50. Because some of the frames were smaller actually. So they were like, it was like $12. But the frame costed me like literally $3 or $4, the print itself $1 or less. And it was actually the easiest marketplace transactions I've ever had. We all know what it's like to try to sell furniture or clothes on marketplace. But yeah, so I was really surprised, and I shared this idea with a photographer in my Discord group who also needs to make money and has prints. I was like, I suggest trying to find some vintage frames, putting that online. And in thinking about that, it made me realize that this concept, so sometimes we want to find, we want to be sold around things that are similar to us, or that where we feel like our art fits, But I'm realizing that sometimes the best room to be in is one where you stand out. So the best place to sell your art can be a place where you're actually quite random, but you're random, but that the people who notice you like are aligned. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about that. And I even recently in the Discord group again, somebody posted a t-shirt they made that they put on Etsy. And my first thought was, this would do so well on Marketplace because Marketplace and or a street randomly selling shit on the street or like whatever, again, it sparks this feeling of like, oh, this is so cool and random. And what are you doing here? And let me look at this. It almost sparks that feeling of like when you're thrifting, like what people love about thrifting is that they feel like they have agency over what they like and that they found something unique and special, it adds this layer of individuality, I guess, or of personality and of like, this is my POV. I wasn't informed by the market trends or whatever. There's just a sense of, in French we say sens d'appartenance, but I don't know how to say that in English. But it just feels more personal. It feels like a more conscious choice. So yeah, I'm thinking about that. And I've also, in a consulting call I had recently, was talking with my client about how I felt like maybe they were avoiding being in the right rooms and that they should seek out rooms, quote unquote, where people are on their level. So I think very often as a creative, we're sort of like ascending different levels of confidence with ourselves and confidence with our creativity. And sometimes we get comfortable or we have a hard time putting ourselves in the rooms with people who are also in the same place as us or higher than us. And so we get stuck in the rooms with people who are struggling, who are broke, who are like, don't have anything figured out, who are just like complaining, etc. And it just makes it makes you feel very stagnant. It makes you feel like you're the only one hustling for something or the only one reaching, etc. It's not a great feeling. And so, yeah, it's important to experiment with also as a human, what rooms make you feel most alive? What rooms do you feel valued in? And what rooms make you feel recharged? Example, a couple weeks ago, I was invited to an open mic and I ended up I started with poetry and then went into a freestyle comedy set and it ended up going really well. But I had most fun while I was sitting in the audience, and surprisingly in the audience, I met somebody who has a literary podcast, which was convenient because I'm writing a book or just finished writing a book. So I made a cool network contact there, and also talked to some other, comedians and stuff. And actually being in a room with poets and comedians felt really validating. I was like, this is me. I have the depth of a poet with a Scorpio moon, and I also have the wit of an Aries sun who likes to do comedy. And so it felt really validating and really nice to be around people with that energy. And I thought about, the person I met with the literary podcast, and I was like, this conversation was so much more fun and poignant. Poignant? Is that how you say it? Because we weren't in a literary setting, you know what I mean? And I feel like we were both more alive and more excited and had like a better discussion because of it. And the thing I realized actually since getting into comedy was that in connecting with comics, like most of them have other creative, cool jobs, So it's actually a great way to network, to be honest. So yeah, that's my kind of spiel on rooms. Take whatever resonates, leave what doesn't. And in that segue is thinking about platforms. So I recently got off Instagram because I wanted to focus on my book launch, and I'm so tired of the Instagram hustle, and I didn't want to keep convincing myself that posting about a book or something I made is actually effective marketing. I feel like it's really easy for us to equate a post with marketing, but so often a post flops or doesn't work or no one cares or whatever, and you just kind of feel this constant like, oh, my marketing's not working or nobody cares or whatever. And this book means a lot to me. So I just sort of was like, how could I approach this more intentionally? Because I no longer feel like Instagram is a place where people are putting much intention. And I'm a doer, and unfortunately, Instagram can really distract me because I can just post and then get distracted by that. And I don't even care about scrolling that much. It's more so that even as a poster, I can overdo it in the wrong direction or whatever. And so anyways, as I've deactivated that for a while, I'm reconsidering it, and I'm looking at other platforms. And I'm already on Substack, which I enjoy, but haven't really employed any sort of tactic for getting paid there. I don't really love the model. I'm sort of sick of the like $5 a month subscription vibe. And I don't really, again, I don't want to do volume. I don't want to have to find, thousands of people to pay me $9 a month. It just doesn't feel right. And I like keeping it as a sort of looser space. I did have it, like most of my posts are free, and I did put an option where you can pay for the year and it's $30, which I find kind of cool, instead of the $80 or $90 a year. I'm like, what would you pay for a book, or like a little over a book, $30, or you can pay $9 for a month. And what I do have as paid is like something that was published in a book. So it's like, instead of buying the book, you can do that. But anyways, thinking about platforms, I was clicking around and realized it was time to relook at Patreon, because I kept getting notifications that they were combining my profile account with my creator account, which I had made a creator account a while ago that I never used, called Creative Co-working Club, which is my Discord, my newsletter, and my sort of like consulting services. And I started clicking around, and suddenly I was like inspired by the framework they have, and realized that I could very easily, start a podcast here, share my Discord, my consulting, connect with other creatives. Essentially, Patreon is a place for creatives who are in search of creating money and a personal economy out of their work. And I was like, oh my God, I had this sort of like aha. I was like, this might be where I need to be with this business, with the Creative Co-working Club. It might work best here. And suddenly I was like re-inspired, because I also just like how the back end looks and the options you have, like podcasts, written posts, photos, you can share digital downloads and all that. And I was like, oh, I already have workshops. I already have this. I already have that. Like, I kind of could populate this with something exciting. And so suddenly I was inspired. And then it was like making me think about, this is exactly how I felt when I discovered MetaLabel and DFOS, Dark Forest Operating System, was that the framework itself inspired how I think about creating. And I was like, see, this is the difference between a platform like Instagram versus a platform made for actual artists and creators. And for me, the difference is this. For Instagram, I feel like I should post or I should share in order to sort of keep up or be seen or stay in people's mind. I don't necessarily feel inspired by the format. Like, I generally don't. It was okay for poetry or whatever, but I realized it wasn't landing how I liked. It was okay. Sometimes I love post stories, how I'm doing, and funny anecdotes, whatever. But it didn't feel like it was bringing out, quote unquote, the best of my creating capabilities. And when I saw how MetaLabel worked, when I set up my book pre-orders and digital downloads, it gave me all these other ideas of how I could launch new stuff and how I could collaborate with others. And it completely re-inspired what I saw for myself in my other business, which will be Between Worlds, a publishing sort of media art studio. And so that inspired a whole different framework for a specific business. And then now Patreon is inspiring me for a whole other, for like the original, my first business after closing my first business, I mean my second business. It's inspiring a whole new way. And I'm realizing that maybe the secret to consistency, because everyone always says, oh, it's all about consistency, blah, blah, blah. The secret to consistency is actually finding a framework, a platform whose framework actually inspires you to create things that you actually enjoy and things that you actually are excited to create and feel easy to do, but of high value. Because this is the other thing. So I was like, if you want an income to feel passive, because nothing's ever fully passive, but if you want it to feel passive, it has to be easy to do, but offer high value. And that sort of just blew my mind, because I was like, I could see myself creating for Patreon in a way that feels easy for me, but offers high value to creative freelancers or small business owners. And so that was a big fucking aha that I had yesterday. And lastly, I am on a 2-week sprint to make 2K. One of my retainer clients, I had to let them go or pause our contract because they were on a really tight budget. I imposed a tight budget on them because they were drowning in debt and loss. And we finally, after 2 months, got them to a point where they can make a profit. And the next step was letting employees go. And the next step was employing the tight budget that I'd suggested. And it just felt silly and disingenuous for me to keep myself in the budget at like 2.5K a month while they're laying off loyal employees. I was like, I can't in my right mind do that. And so I paused the contract and told them we would go switch to my hourly rate, which is $60 an hour for like a la carte services. And it felt good because I knew I wouldn't feel good doing that. But it did put me in a bad place because I now need to make up that money before the end of the month. Unfortunately, I'm in a tight place right now. So I wanted to talk about that reality because I do offer a lot of value, but my current system that I've set up for my consulting and creative co-working club is not really sustainable. And so this Patreon idea is actually me trying to find a more sustainable way to do this. And so part of that is me just sharing where I'm at and sharing what I'm trying and what I'm doing. So what I'm trying to do to make 2K in 2 weeks. Over this weekend, I wrote to old hair clients of mine, because I used to be a hairdresser, for those of you who might not know, who I thought might like my book. I sent a newsletter to my Creative Co-working Club mailing list about how I'm looking for new clients. I am selling my prints on Marketplace. I reached out to leads that I had started conversations with. So I have a small website contract that's starting, but it's not enough. So, I need more. And what else am I going to do? Oh yeah, so I'm going to be texting and reaching out to some creatives I know that I know are always sort of juggling a bunch of projects, and I'm going to ask if they're looking for a project manager, etc. I'm launching this Patreon. What else am I going to do? Let me see what's on my to-do list. Oh yeah, I'm applying to a grant this week for a novel that I have an outline for that I want to write. I'm sending my book for print, which is going to give me a physical object to sell, which will actually be very helpful as well. I feel like it'll be easier for me to sell something physical. So yeah, that's sort of what I'm doing this week. It's a lot of outreach to people I know, and then being in different rooms. I am keeping it updated in the Discord. So in the Discord last week, we started a Wednesday lunchtime solicited advice check-in for those of us who were either looking for clients or setting goals. And so I'm going to be upkeeping that weekly. And I'm excited to check in about how all of this is going. So yeah, if you're a creative who needs like accountability, consistency, and wants to be around other people who are trying to make money from their art, the Discord is a really fun place to be and a really cool place to ask for advice. There is a clock in, weekly intentions, a validation station, a feedback forum, open office chat. There are voice rooms, resources, etc. So yeah, this is my first episode. This is it. I hope that some of this brought you something. If it did, leave a comment.